And welcome back. In this last video in this course, we're going to talk about deploying a game to the web. Now, Unity makes this quite simple. It's pretty much the same process with a few different settings selected as we had in the last video for PC and Mac deployments. The deployment objects that Unity creates, one is a game object, one is a JavaScript object, and we said in the first video that if you were going to do an online deployment, which meant that the web page could actually go out and ping against the Unity site, that you don't even need that JavaScript object. It just goes and gets the most current one at the time the game is run. Now there's a third object that's created, and that is an actual HTML page that you can deploy that the game is in. You've got a couple of different choices. They're pretty basic. If you are familiar with writing HTML code and building web pages, you don't really even need this last object. You can create your own web page. So it's your choice. If you're familiar with web page development, you can go ahead and build as fancy a page as you want to put your game in. If you're not familiar with web development, you can just use the page that Unity creates during the build and not worry about it. So that's it, and let's go through it. So we're going to come into our File menu and choose Build Settings, and we're going to choose Web Player. Now we've got these streamed and offline and development build buttons. We haven't talked about the development build button, but streamed again is if you've got lots of scenes, you got lots of assets, you want the game to start playing just as soon as the system thinks there's enough that's been loaded to the local web browser to make that happen. Offline deployment, again, is that JavaScript file, whether or not that's going to be created as part of the build, or if the system can get to the online resources, it's just going to update it to the latest version that Unity's created. So the player settings button here, we come in. Now here under this resolution and presentation are really all of the settings that we're going to worry about. Default icon above is not really an issue in a web build because the player's not going to have an icon to click. They're just going to go to a web page. And we've got these settings here. The first settings are the resolution, default screen width and height. This is the size of the game that's going to come up in the web page. Okay, and now below that here we have these three different web pages. These are your three different choices for web page design that Unity will build out with this deployment. So you've got a black background and a white background, and one that's much more plain with a white background. These are ones that you can use. Again, you can just take the objects once they're built and put it in your own web page if you know how, but if you don't, these will work fine. Just slightly different looks. So you come over and you click the Build button, and then give it a location. I'm going to put this on the desktop. I'm going to create a folder and just call this WebBuild. Just need to be able to find it later on, so we select the folder, and here we go. So it's going to go through this. You're going to see progress bars. It's going to take a little while. It's going to be dependent on how big your game is, how many assets are there. And there we go. There's the window. I'm just going to close this one here and minimize Unity. So there's my folder in the desktop, Web Build. Then down inside that, we've got another folder called Web Player. And here's the two objects that were built out. We've got webplayer.html, which is our web page, and webplayer.unity3d, which is actually our game object. Now there's a third object that was not built in this build, and that was the JavaScript file that is built if you tell Unity that the application, the web page, is not going to be able to go out and ping the Unity site to get the latest version of that. But we said that it would, so it wasn't for offline deployment. So we just got these two objects. Now you can come in and just double click the HTML page. Now the browser that is set as default on this machine right now is Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer is a little pickier as far as security goes with regard to these things. So it says, to help protect your security, Internet Explorer has restricted the web page from running scripts or ActiveX controls that could access your computer. Click here for options. And then if you look in the middle, it says Unity Web Player install now. Well, what happened is, as the page came up, it tried to run the little Unity game app in the web, and it couldn't. And the first thing it thinks in the page is that you don't have the player. Now, the Unity Web Player is available for free from Unity, just has to be installed in a browser. You do that one time, then it's there. But what's happened here is that Internet Explorer has blocked that from being used. So Internet Explorer can be a bit of a pain in that way. Just allow block content, click yes. All of a sudden it finds the player which was installed before on the machine. Underneath it, that's a little progress bar, and there's the game. So if you look in the lower right of the game section of the screen, you'll see this little logo and the name Unity sliding in from the right side. This is kind of the web equivalent of a splash screen. So we can go ahead and press enter to start. And there's the game. Now, the game will run just fine, and it'll do all the game things. But if you look at the bottom, because the screen size that we've chosen for this deployment, and we left it at the default, was so small, you see the heads-up ammo display and the score are kind of overlapping. And the score is actually running off the edge of the screen. Now, we said that when you actually place those heads-up display and text-to-objects on the screen, you have to make changes possibly when you do your final deployment. That the size of the screen in the final deployment may make it such that you want to go back and change those. And in this case, we certainly would want to make them smaller or put them in a tiered situation where one was on one line and one was on a lower line. Just something so that they could both be more visible. So just something to consider. Just go in there, make the changes, and do another build. So the game's playing, works fine, works good. We can do all the things that we usually do in the game that we've done before. The one thing, though, that we can't do is to quit. If we win or lose the game, you really can't quit from the game window of a web page. Now, you can write some code into the web page to do some kind of features, but the quit function that we've coded in doesn't really work in the web. So you'd want to either take that out or spend a little extra time if you know something about web design to do something a little bit different. So we can leave this here now. We'll just close this web page. And, well, that's it for this first course. So we've gone from going out to the Unity site and downloading the free version of the Unity game engine, game creation software, to the point where we've got a completed first-person shooter game. Learn something about coding along the way, about creating scripts, about creating different scenes, about creating textures, using the physics engine that was built in. An awful lot of the basics of creating games. We built a first-person shooter, but we also built a landscape, a terrain that you had a character walking around on, running around on. Saw something about particle systems, how to use them to maybe create some effects, some fire, some waterfalls, snow, all kinds of different things. A lot of things that you can do now. You need some imagination, need to think about it, need to figure out how to put these things together. So you can take these tools and do quite a bit. Now, there's still quite a bit more that we haven't done. And so that's why there's more courses. So we can say goodbye now and let you explore these, or meet up again in the next course. So till then.